Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be ranking every future Pokemon in the Pokemon TCG, including the cards that aren't out yet, which is, I think, just two. And the cards that aren't out yet, I'm going to be referring to PokemonProxies.com, which is a pretty cool website, which just has proxies or English translations of the Japanese cards, but most of them are in English. So we're going to be going in type order as well, and this is just based on how good they are. In the past, I did a tier list ranking how well designed I thought they were, but this one's just on how good they are. S being the best, F being the worst, and this is in the context of the whole game, not just the future Pokemon. So some aren't good in future decks, but might be good separately. And there doesn't need to be an S tier or an F tier, but I think there will be. We'll see. I'm starting off with Iron Leaves EX. This one, it one shots Charizard. That's what it does. There's not too much to say about it. I'll put it in well, I guess, okay, sorry. That's a bit of an oversimplification. It can be used in like future box, or like future box style decks. It moves energy to itself when on play, and then it like switches into the active, which is kind of cool. You know, you can move energy, and its damage output is I think 220. No, it's 180, but then it can be boosted up to theoretically 280. We'll talk about Iron Crown EX and Future Boost Energy Capsule later. They're really good, but you're not really boosting it up to 280. But you could be boosting it up to 220, and that's a pretty nice number to hit. 220 or 240, which you can get to. So I'm gonna put it in C tier, B tier. Right now it's not that good. It's mostly a counter to Charizard, but Charizard's not like the best deck in format right now. Last standard format before Twilight Masquerade, it was, but it's not anymore. So I think C tier is fine. It's an okay card. The single prize Iron Leaves. Does anyone play this card? No. It does 160 if one of your Pokemon was knocked out last turn. That's okay, I guess. I mean, this isn't that good. It's not like complete trash, but I'm gonna put it in D tier. I don't think it's very good. Iron Moth is really weird. I think it's, what is it? Oh, once during a turn when this Pokemon moves from the bench to the active, you can move fire energy to it. And it just 124 fire colorless. That's so awkward because fire is not used by, well, I was gonna say literally anything else. There's another fire Pokemon we'll talk about in just a moment, but no, this is pretty bad. I'm gonna put an F tier. I mean, there are worse cards in the game and there are worse future Pokemon, but this is still a card that you don't really want to be playing. Um, and the moving energy thing is pretty bad. I mean, it's not that bad, but the deck you'd be playing it in is like a Firebox style deck, which plays Armarouge. So then it's just essentially useless because you're moving the energy. Armarouge just has that ability, and so you don't need it on Iron Moth, and so it's useless. Its attack's super mediocre, and yeah, it's not very good. There are worse Pokemon, but it is still in the lowest tier. Next, we have Iron Moth, another Iron. Oh, so by the way, the future Pokemon, there's only a certain set of Pokemon, so some have multiple cards. Do they all have multiple cards? They mostly, if not all, have multiple cards. So there's like multiple single prize Iron Moths and stuff. This one's not out, but it's coming out in the mini set. Uh, no, it's it. Yeah, in the mini set. And it has Suction, which isn't very good, but it has a Wild Rejector, which says during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's ancient Pokemon. This is okay as a tech option in future decks, or no, yeah, in maybe not future decks, but like fire decks, and then could be used in future decks or various different decks. It's pretty mediocre to underwhelming, but if you are against an ancient deck, it's pretty good. It will not be walling off. Roaring Moon EX is like damaging, or not damaging, instant knockout attack. That is not damage. It's just an instant knockout. It does damage itself, but yeah. So that's not going to be walling off everything, but it's okay. It is playable. Next, we have Iron Bundle, and there's two Iron Bundles. There's the first one, which says if it's on the bench, you can discard it and then switch your opponent's active out to the bench, or they switch, essentially force them to switch, and that's annoying for them to have to deal with. Your attack is okay as well. It's honestly pretty all right. Not that good, but it stops the defending evolution Pokemon from attacking again, assuming they don't switch out. So that could be an issue. Not usually, but in terms of plays, has this one seen the most play? It might have. It's not the best card. I'm gonna put it in A tier. I could see an argument for putting it in S tier. Is it S tier actually? No, I don't think it's S tier. This is obviously an opinionated list, as all tier lists are, but yeah, it's A tier because its impact in the game usually is low to none. Again, no, it's usually like low impact in the game. It can occasionally be super good, but compared to some of the best cards in the game, it's not quite there. It sees a lot of play, but it's usually like if you're designing a list, it's one of the last cards you'll add to it, and you don't need it. It's a nice addition. I know some people really love Iron Bundle, but it's okay. In future decks, it's pretty solid as well. It's a card you can add in pretty easily. We'll talk about Techno Radar, and it's searchable off of that, as well as Nest Ball, Ultra Ball, not Buddy Buddy Poffin, but pretty much any other ball search you'd be using in a deck, or Pokemon search, you could get the Iron Bundle. The other Iron Bundle, though, is not as good. What does this one do? Oh, it's 60 for water colorless, and then you switch this with one of your bench Pokemon. Then you also force your opponent to switch out, just like the other Iron Bundle. I mean, who's playing this card? This card's so bad. I suppose you could like boost damage. I don't know. There are like niche scenarios where it's like kind of okay. You could power it up in a number of different ways, but its attack damage is very low. Forcing your opponent to switch is kind of random. And then it's like hit and runs. You can switch to one of your bench Pokemon, but that's not that good right now. We'll talk about one Pokemon you can send up or just leave in the active, but no, this card's not good. Oh, I guess that Pokemon is up next though, and that's Iron Thorns EX. Iron Thorns EX has its ability initialization as long as it's in the active. Pokemon in play with a rule box. Both yours and your opponents have no abilities other than future Pokemon, so it won't be turning off other Iron Thorns EXs and Iron Crown EXs and Iron Valiant. That doesn't actually work. So I guess it's just Iron Thorns and Iron Crowns. But so this is kind of, I guess if your opponent had an Iron Valiant, then that wouldn't turn it off. Anyways, this is very good, right? It's seeing play in a few different decks, notably future or like decks you play Iron Hands in, and Lost Zone, which I guess you play Iron Hands in as well. But it's really good in Lost Zone, and you don't need to be playing Iron Hands. But Iron Hands EX, there's a single prizer. Iron Thorns EX, though, its attack is 140 for Lightning Colorless, and you move an energy from this Pokemon to one of your bench Pokemon, and you are forced to do that, which honestly can create problems sometimes. You can play just 4 Iron Thorns, but then the moving energies could cause you to miss out on attacks. It's kind of not so ideal, but its damage output is like alright, and then it's really good against Charizard EX with Pidgeot EX. It just kind of destroys that, and it also even more so destroys Lugia V-Star because assuming they don't have a hard counter, then it just completely destroys them. So Iron Thorns EX is good. It's a counter card. I'm gonna put it in A tier. I could, and it's above Iron Bundle. I'll put it below Iron Bundle. It's pretty close. They're pretty different. They're like almost complete. They're not complete opposites, but they're pretty different. Iron Thorns EX is very much it's an attacker, something you're gonna have in the active. Iron Bundle you never want in the active. So they're pretty different cards, but I think that Iron Thorns EX is a little worse. They're pretty good though. They're both very solid Pokemon, but there are better Pokemon as well. And another better Pokemon is it's Iron Hands EX, right? Iron Hands EX, thank you very much. Lightning Colorless. Probably the most expensive attack in the game that sees serious amounts of play, but it does 120. But then if you take a knockout with it, you take an extra prize. I mean, this card's so good. Oh wow, what are these decks? I saw like Armouge box, but Chien-Pao plays it. Chien-Pao Excalibur, Lost Zone, the Iron Hands future deck. I mean, it's named after um, Iron Hands, even after all the future Pokemon, but specifically Iron Hands, so it's got to be good. And Iron Hands EX. If people say Iron Hands, they mean the EX, but there is a single prizer, which we'll talk about. And you can tech it into lots of decks. Lugia as well, it sees a good amount of play, and especially now in Legacy Energy, but it's all playing that deck before. And I don't remember if I said Maridon, but it's really good. It's definitely S tier. It's definitely the best future card. I'm pretty sure. I'm going to just take a look through at the end. I mean, maybe a trainer, but it's really good. It's probably the best one. It's just so good against single prize decks. And 160 for 3 is not bad either. Speaking of 160 for 3, we got, oh, no. Yeah, let's talk about the single prize Iron Hands. It can do 160 for Lightning Colors to one of your opponent's to one of their EXs or Vs, which is solid. And then you are pushing that 160 up to maybe 220, probably not 240. That's a little hard to do, but 220, and you can knock out a lot of different things, right? You can knock out like Maridon EX or the other Maridon EX or whatever. There's a lot of Pokemon you can knock out with it. Not all of them, but a good chunk. Iron Hands though is not very good. It's because the Iron Hands EX's attack, it's essentially just better. The first one on Iron Hands EX is directly better than the second one on single prize Iron Hands. It is a multi-prizer, so that's to be expected, but then it's the weaker the attacks on Iron Hands EX, so generally like not really useful almost ever. I'm gonna honestly put it in D tier. I'll put it in D tier. I was gonna say it's worse than Iron Leaves EX. Yeah, putting it with the single prize Iron Leaves, the newer Iron Moth, and then the Iron Hands. I think that's pretty solid and pretty fair. Next, we got Iron Thorns. I don't know if this is going to be controversial, but I don't think this card is very good. The second attack is complete trash, 140 for 4, but there's not multiple color synergies, and it's just not good. But the first stack, Destructo Press, 70 times multiplier. You reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. It does 70 for each future card you find there. Discard the future card, shuffle the others back. This isn't very good. There are a lot of attacks, or there is a good few attacks like this in the game. They're generally all bad, and this is no exception. It's between the Iron Bundle and the Iron Moth. Also, why do they all like? Why are all the names the same? It's so annoying that they're all Iron something. But Iron Thorns is not good. It's pretty bad. I know some people probably like this style of card, but it's not good. Next we got Iron Crown EX. Oh, Iron Crown does not have 2 Pokemon. I think all the other ones do. Anyway, Iron Crown EX here, it does the ability Cobalt Command, attacks used by your future Pokemon other than Iron Crown EX, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. Do 20 more damage to your opponent's active. And then you have Twin Chatels, which does Psychic Colorless, 50 damage to your opponent's Pokemon, and isn't affected by weakness resistance or effects on those Pokemon, so it can hit through Mimikyu. This is B tier, I think. Oh, no, is it A tier? It's really important to the future deck, but it's not used in any other decks, and it's not like the most important card in future decks. I guess I'm gonna put it in B tier, and I'll probably end up putting Maridon in B tier as well. It's not bad. It's pretty solid, but there are definitely better cards than it as well. Its attack is mediocre to underwhelming, but its ability is super good for future decks, but only future decks, unlike these other cards, which have more versatility and more power in general. Iron Crown EX on its own is kind of terrible. Then we have Iron Valiant EX. This is a card I really like. Its ability, if you switch it from the bench to the active, Tachyon Bits, it does, you put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. It's pretty fun, honestly. You can play it in a bunch of different decks. It's pretty versatile. And then Laser Blade 200 for Psychic Colorless, and can't attack next turn, but that doesn't really matter. It's solid damage output, and you get the extra damage from the switching. I'd say it's a B tier card as well. I think it's better than Iron Crown EX. It can be played in a lot of different decks. It can be played in like Lost Zone, as you can see here, but it can be played with NTV. People aren't doing that anymore, but like these decks are post rotation still. Just a deck that doesn't see play for whatever reason. It just completely fell off when Gouging Fire came out, or once Twilight Masquerade came out to be, or no, sorry, what does that set? Temporal Forces. There we go. All the sets are. Why they name multiple sets after future and ancient Pokemon? Anyways, so yeah, it's okay. It's solid. No, it's worse than Iron Crown EX. I changed my mind. They're pretty close. They're different, but they're pretty close. It has more versatility than Iron Crown EX, but it's worse. I guess it's less important to the future deck by a lot. Then we have the single prize Iron Valiant. There's 2 of them. I always forget which one's which. Well, I never play either of them. This one does, I don't know. It does 200 for 3 if you play the future supporter, and then the other one does 120 for 3, or can do 20 to 2. I mean, like these are not good. Are they F tier? Yeah, they're F tier. They're pretty bad. I'm not gonna like sort which of these is better. I guess the one that's 200. But you need a feature supporter. I don't know. They're not very good. There's not too much to say about them. But yeah, then we got the Iron Boulder though. This is the last card that isn't out yet. And this is a really fun card. It's attack here. By the way, the attack name might be translated wrong, but the effect of what it does is right. 170 for 2 with adjustable horn, assuming you have the same number of cards in hand as your opponent. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything. Also, 140 HP is pretty good. 3 retreat is bad, but it's not that big of a deal. And so solid damage output. I don't really know how you'd play this card. I'm gonna put it in. Do I put it in D tier? D tier feels kind of harsh. I think it's a really fun card. Having the same amount of cards in your hand as your opponent's like a really fun gimmick, but I'm gonna put it in D tier, unfortunately, just above the other Pokemon. Most of the single prizers. Yeah, I guess we can see that single prizers are generally worse than multi prizers. But yeah, it's okay, I guess. Oh no, I'll put it in C tier. I changed my mind. It's fun. I mean, its damage output's really good and it's really efficient. Obviously, awkward to get the same amount of cards in your hand as your opponent, but there are ways to do it. Judge, Iono, Roxanne, Unfair Stamp generally will get you there. Judge immediately gets you there. Then the other ones, maybe not Iono, but the Unfair Stamp of Roxanne put your opponent down to a smaller hand than you, so then you just play a few cards from your hand, which you should be able to do, especially if you're building a deck towards it. But really, any future deck should be able to do that because you just play lots of items and tools and stuff you can just throw down. So yeah, I think ending this card's it's okay. It's not that good, but it's okay. Next, we got the single prize, no, sorry, the multi-prize Iron Boulder, the fighting one, multi-prize Iron Boulder EX here. It can do 200 for fighting colorless. And it could also do Repulsor Axe, fighting colorless 60 during your opponent's next turn. If it's damaged by an attack, it does essentially 80 to them. They get 8 damage counters put on the attacking Pokemon. That's solid. Both attacks are like solid. You got high HP and you hit fighting weakness. It's a C tier Pokemon, better than no. I'll put it above the single prize Iron Boulder, below Iron Leaves EX. It's solid. It's nothing really special at all, but it is a Pokemon that can be able to hit fighting weakness, which can be nice, and also it's a big pain for certain single prizers that have low HP. If they have any HP or less and they hit into you, then they get knocked out, and that's really rough for them, right? And then Repulsor Axe, also only 2 energy. There's a lot of upside to this Pokemon. It's not like super high upside, but it's moderately high upside, and you can see that it sees some play, not a ton, but some. But yeah, solid card here. Then we have the Iron Treads. I have the single prizer first. I've been doing the multi prizes first, but not this case because it has this ability, dual core. If it has Future Booster Energy Capsule attached, it's fighting and metal. And then it has Wheel Pass, which does 60 for a metal and a colorless. And you move an energy in this Pokemon to one of your bench Pokemon. This is worse than Iron Boulder EX. It's another fighting Pokemon, but it generally does less damage. Not exactly, but it does essentially. And it's not very good. It's not that bad. I'm gonna put it in the D tier. It's not like unplayable or anything, but it's not that good either. Not too much to say about it. Its damage output's low. Dual typing is really cool, but it's like kind of hard to do and use. And then you need metal energy. You're not playing metal energy. You're not playing fighting energy either, so it does give you dual type coverage. And hitting metal type weakness is actually pretty good. This Pokemon's solid against yeah, I convinced myself I'm moving up to C tier. This Pokemon's solid against Chien-Pao EX, and it's solid against like Lightning decks, I guess. It's just okay. Nothing insane, but it's solid. Next, we've got the Iron Treads EX. This one's so bad, honestly. Well, let's see. So it's Metal Colorless 150, and after doing damage, you can discard all future booster energy capsules attached to this Pokemon. And then during your opponent's next turn, you take 150 less. Taking less damage is really nice, but that's a lot of energy. You need the tool, and your opponent can gust around it. So there's a lot of downsides to this, and it's not terrible. I'm going to put it in the top of D tier, but pretty underwhelming. Iron Treads has some of the worst Pokemon in the game for the fact that they're either future or EXs or both, and this one's a pretty disappointing one. It's not, again, a terrible card, but it's not certainly a good card either. It's pretty underwhelming, especially for an EX. And then we have Maridon next. Maridon Peak Acceleration. For one colorless, you do 40, search for up to 2 basic energy, attach them to your future Pokemon any way you like, including to the active. And Sparking Strike here does 160 for Lightning Fighting. No, sorry, Lightning Psychic. There we go. That is really solid. It's enough to well, it's not enough to knock out too much other than single prizers, but it is enough to knock out, or to get to that 220 mark to knock out 2 prizers with iron, with a few different ways. You could attack with Peak Acceleration first and then Spiking Strike, which is a very solid option and a viable option, or you could Peak Acceleration accelerate to a bench Maridon. That's probably not happening, but then Spiking Strike can do 220 or 240 or whatever to one-shot 2 prizers. It's arguably the most important Pokemon in the Future Box deck. You could say Maridon and Iron Crown EX are the heart of it. I'll put Maridon right next to, I'll put it below Iron Crown EX, I guess. I don't know. I think its second attack's actually pretty underrated. It's not that good. I talked about a bunch of uses of it, but it's not that good. You'd rather be attacking with Iron Hands EX, maybe Iron Thorns EX, maybe Iron Valiant EX, but it's still pretty good. And then its first attack's really good, accelerating the energy. It's not the only way, but it's really the main way, and so it's pretty solid. Maridon EX is decent. This is, by the way, the Dragon one. There are two Lightning ones. There's the good Lightning one, the mediocre Lightning one, then the Dragon EX, and the single prize Dragon. But the Dragon EX is okay here. Repulsion Bolt, by the way, 220 HP, but and no weakness as well. Repulsion Bolt, though, 160 if your opponent's active, has any damage counters on it. Cyber Drive, 220 for Lightning Psychic, colorless. I mean, this is just so mediocre. It's going straight into the C tier. Going to go at the top is the no. Um, Apparently, it's seen less play than Iron Boulder, but I think it's better than Iron Boulder. EX, I should say. Yeah, I mean, it's just a mediocre attacker. Its damage output, both damage outputs are solid. 160 is pretty good. You need damage counters on them, though, so you need to have hit them with probably peak acceleration. You could use Iron Valiant EX, and there are different things, but it's solid. And yeah, not too much to say about it, but it's decent. Then we got two Iron Juguluses. These are both, in my opinion, pretty cool. This one, they're not very good though. Homing Headbutt, 50 damage to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon that have any damage counters on them for 3 colorless, and any form of damage buffs. The Future Booster Energy Capsule or the Iron Crown EX. The damage buffs will only apply to the active, but you can do it to the active. And then Barrier Beam at 150 for 5, but if you have Future Booster Energy Capsule attached, you do it for 3, and then it will be hitting 170 in addition to any Iron Crown EX buffs. This card is underwhelming. I'm going to put it in D tier. I think it's the best D tier Pokemon so far. It's very, it's playable. It's fun as well, but maybe I just like this card, but I think it's okay. Then this Iron Jugulus, which does automate combat. If it's hit into, you essentially do 30 damage, but its damage counters can't be amplified by damage buffs. But then Blasting Wind here, 110 for 3. This one's pretty underwhelming. How bad is it? It's not like the worst, but it's not very good. It's pretty underwhelming in F tier. It's a underwhelming generic Pokemon without much value. Then we're moving on to the trainers, and these get pretty interesting. Ribupod is the A spec, and I don't really know where to rank this one. It's seen some play. It's an A spec. You can only play one A spec, but it says attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to each of your future Pokemon. And if you're talking about future box without, or not just focused around the Iron Hands EX, Reboot Pod is really important because I said Maridon was really the main way of energy acceleration, and it is. There is an electric generator as well for Iron Hands EX and a few other things, but Reboot Pod is a really powerful way. It can accelerate potentially. Well, theoretically, it can accelerate 8 energies, but in current standard, it can, I guess 9 in full expanded, but in current standard, it's accelerating potentially 6 energies, but probably not. It's probably accelerating 3 or 4, but you can make solid use of it. It's only 1 energy to a singular Pokemon, so if you want to go from having no energies in play to attacking with the Pokemon that it costs 3 energies to attack, which is really most of them, then you are going to need to energy switch or do something. Maybe Iron leaves EX and then do that. I don't know. It's kind of niche or awkward. It's weird. It's not the best card. It's not the worst, and we're judging it as an A spec, so comparing it to the other A specs, and Prime Catcher is just generally better. I'm gonna put it in D tier. Honestly, it might be the worst A spec. It's pretty bad, but well, it's not bad. It's just really awkward. You need energies in your discard pile, lots of Pokemon in play, and then you need to be in certain circumstances to make good use of it because you don't need energies on all your Pokemon. This isn't Roaring Moon EX. Or sorry, it's not Roaring. It's not Raging Bolt EX is what I meant to say, where you need energies all across your board, or you can get value from that. Same thing with Chimpow EX. It's not those decks. You could try to put it into weird stuff where you want energies all around the board, but that's just not that good. So I think Reboot Pod is pretty underwhelming, and it's proven itself to be pretty underwhelming. Unfortunately, it has such a high ceiling, but it does a lot of stuff that you just don't need it to do, and so it has restrictions to get benefits that just aren't that good. Not a terrible card by any means, but not very good either. Then we have Techno Radar. Discard an item. Sorry, it's an item. Discard a card from your hand. Search your deck for up to 2 future Pokemon, reveal and put them into your hand. This is pretty nice. Most of the future Pokemon are just attackers, but it's good for setup. And then Iron Crown EX is a support Pokemon, and there are some other support Pokemon as well. So it's really good. Only in, of course, future decks, but it's really good. I'm going to put it above Iron Crown EX and Maridon. It's those three cards are really the heart and soul of the future deck, outside of Iron Hands EX, which is the main attacker. But okay, Future Booster Energy Capsule is also pretty important, but it's good. Let's talk about that one next. It's a tool. You get free retreat. You do 20 more damage if you're a future Pokemon. Just really good in future decks. Um, I think Future Boost Energy Capsule is a really, really solid tool, but it's going to end up in B tier as well, below Iron Valiant. No, it's above Iron Valiant EX. We'll just keep all four together here. Extra damage is always nice, and having free retreat's also nice, and you make good use of both of those in the deck. The free retreat, it acts as like a switch card. Your opponents will often try to gust up your Iron Crown EXs, or maybe something else, but maybe an Iron Hands EX on the bench that doesn't have any energies attached, so they might go for those, but you can just attach this tool and then you're out of there. It is a tool, so you can't have more than one tool, which is like occasionally an issue, but that's not saying this tool is bad. It's just saying um it is what it is, right? So it's a really solid card. Then we have two cards left, Professor Turo's Scenario and Cypher Maniac's Codebreaking. Professor Turo's Scenario is a supporter. By the way, both of these aren't related to Future at all. The only interaction they have is being discarded by Iron Thorns. But Professor Turo's Scenario, put one of your Pokemon in play into your hand, and you discard all attached cards. So this will be tools and energies, and yeah, I think that's it. Like there could be really weird scenarios, but really it's those two things. And then you keep the Pokemon though. So if it's an evolution, you can scoop up the basics, and it doesn't need to be future Pokemon. This card's really good in standard right now. I'm going to put it in S tier. I'm making that decision. It can be useful in Gardevoir for a number of different scenarios, no pun intended, and in a lot of different decks as well. Charizard, really any evolution deck. There is the card Penny, which is hurting. This card Penny is directly better, assuming you're scooping up basic Pokemon. Well, okay, you keep the cards attached, but with Gardevoir, there are times when you want to discard the energies as well. So it's really good in Gardevoir, which is the best deck in the game. Probably, I think a lot of people think that. I think that. It's not my favorite deck in the game, but it is very, very good in my opinion. The best deck. It's doing the best in tournaments. I don't think it's doing best on ladder. I don't see it that much like online, but I see it some, and it's a very good deck. And so I'm going to put this in S tier. It's worse than Iron Hands EX. I mean, they're so different. The ones in attacker, the ones like a defensive counter card to Snorlax, and also it's a healing card and a switching card. It just does all this stuff. Iron Hands EX is just I'm going to take two prizes every turn. So so different, but. Then say for Maniac's Codebreaking here, search for any two cards and put them onto your deck. It is feature, but this is Mallow as well. Well, Professor Terra Scenario it's also the same as AZ, and AZ was like solid, but Mallow was really good, but that's a different format. So Codebreak, what's it? Say for Maniac's Codebreaking, also terrible name for a card. Like it's so long, and super hard to remember, but. It's mostly played in Champ How EX. Apparently, it's played in a good chunk of different decks. I think it's solid in and Gardevoir as well, notably because you can Glade for this and then Kirlia, so you can just use two abilities to search for any two cards, but you do use your supporter. It's an okay card. I'm going to put it in B tier as well. I feel like this tier list is pretty solid. Cypher Maniac's Codebreaking is, it's a solid supporter. It's pretty unique, but it's pretty cool. Is it A tier? No, it's not. It's not A tier. I mean, I don't really like Chimpao. It's okay right now. It's like fringe top 10, I'd say. I'd say it's not top 10, but I don't know what would be in the top 10. So let me take a quick look. Dex. Oh wow, it's played a lot. I don't think it's. Yeah, maybe it's top 10. There are probably some decks I'd put in above it. I'd put Pidgeot, Raging Bolt. What's Roaring Moon EX? They classified the Roaring Moon decks weirdly all the time, but Maridon might be better than it as well. Dragapult's better than it, I think, as well. But I'm just not a big Chimpao fan. I know some people really love the deck though, and this is a solid card. It's more like a fifth or sixth Irida, but people usually just play five, right? I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah, it's one in most decks, and it's just essentially a fifth Irida. Irida is like super important, and Cypher Max Codebreaking is like all right, but I think this is a solid list. Comment down below what you think of this list, though, and tomorrow I'm going to rank all the ancient Pokemon as well, so I'm excited to do that, or ancient cards. I'm interested in seeing how many more future Pokemon and cards they're going to come out with, and we'll see what happens with the video game as well. Of course, that, excuse me, really could potentially change things because, if they come out with more future Pokemon, then that's going to be a pretty big deal. I don't pay attention to the video game really much at all, so who knows? But I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to get. And oh, one last thing, a few of these Pokemon have cards that aren't future. I think Maridon and then Iron Treads, they both have EXs that are not future. So yeah, wait, how many Maridons are there? Apparently I forgot there's a single prize Lightning Maridon. I always forget this card exists. It is not so good. The other four are all pretty solid. This one is not good. This one is okay. You can play it. But anyway, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Consider liking and subscribing. Comment down below what else you want to see from me. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.